Pet Life Radio.
This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Feline friends, welcome to Cattitude. I'm your show host, Michelle Fern. What a show I have for you today. Have you heard of a Catbaret before? You're probably thinking, what in the world? Yes, it's true, Catbaret. So stay tuned. I have an amazing guest with me. We'll be right back.
You know the expression, cats have 9 lives. Well, what if you can give them one more? The Give Them 10 movement is on a mission to help give cats an extra life. How? With spay and neuter. Spaying or neutering your cat helps them live a longer, healthier life. And it helps control free-roaming cat populations too. Learn more about the benefits of spay and neuter and meet Scooter, the neutered cat, at GiveThem10.org. That's GiveThem10.org.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'd like to welcome Gemma Smith. She is the producer of Catbaret and also the host of Tails and Tassels podcast. Welcome, Gemma.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to have you on. So before we talk about Catbaret, can you give us a little background about yourself?
Sure. So I originally went to college for theater and moved to New York City afterwards to pursue a career as an actor, but I got a day job at a veterinary clinic in Manhattan, and my love for animals, especially cats, grew from there.
And then where did you come up with a Catbaret? And what is a Catbaret?
Yes, a Catbaret is a cat-themed variety show or a cat-themed cabaret, hence the play on words there with the title. So it's a variety show that features comedy, music, sometimes magic, and burlesque, or as we like to call it, purr-lesque, and it's all cat-themed. However, we love to mix it up. We celebrate different holidays as well.
For purr-lesque, so I had no idea what I would be looking at when Catbaret, and of course I think of Moulin Rouge, and I thought, am I going to see like cats are naked anyways, especially Sphinx cats. So am I going to see cats? Am I going to see women half dressed with cats? I mean, I'm open-minded, whatever, but I had no idea. But it's really cute. And you perform in them as well.
Yeah, so I host the show and I produce it and hire performers also.
You're also a musician?
Well, yes, I do have music in the show. I sometimes play the trumpet in the show. I have tap danced. And like I mentioned before, so it's all cat themed. There's no real cats, although folks are welcome to buy a virtual ticket and sit at home with their cats and watch. But we love to mix it up with themes. So in October, we celebrate Meowloween. So it's cat themed and Halloween themed stand-up comedy, improv. We'll have, like you mentioned, burlesque, which is like you were saying in your imagination, you're thinking of burlesque. It is the art of striptease. You might see someone with a feather fan wearing cat ears, or it could be a cat on a ball of yarn, or a black kitty doing burlesque to Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. So we mix it up, like Galentine's is next. We're going to celebrate felines and friendship. So I'm encouraging everyone to bring their cat-loving besties, and some of the acts might be more friendship-themed with a feline twist.
So when you were thinking of this, why did you think it would work with cats? And do you think it would work with dogs as well?
It's interesting. So I used to live in Astoria, Queens. There's a great comedy club there called QED Astoria. And I was kind of going through a transition and like, do I want to pursue acting? I was working for an animal welfare organization by day at that point. And I just thought, how can I give back to the cat community? I'm a bit of a cat lady. I just have 2 cats, but I have love for all of them. And I thought, what's special that I could do to bring cat lovers together? And that's kind of how I got the idea for the Catbaret. And it started small. over 6 years ago at that comedy club in Queens, and we've grown. Last year, we produced 2 shows at Caveat in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, seats over 100 people. And we filled the theater at the last show. Tons of cat lovers, even tourists from Scotland came, folks who just saw the show on Eventbrite. And we also have our regulars now that come back. Everyone gets free cat ears. That's my gift. I give out free cat ears to everyone. And it's become this real community. And I do think it could work for dog lovers too. I know there is, I've seen like Must Love Dogs comedy shows here around the city. I just realized that for me, this was the way that I could give back to the cat community, especially. And it's been really a project of love.
Okay, it's so interesting. And I get that giving back to cats. And there's something about cat lovers. There's just something about them. And there's something about cats. I think it's the mystique. Because I was thinking in my head, well, you hear about cats being sexy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Books, you hear that. And I'm not saying Catbaret has to be sexy, but burlesque, you think, or purr-lesque, you think sexy. Dogs, you don't think of as sexy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think, yeah.
That's where my head goes. So, just thinking about this. So, right?
I hear you.
I've never heard a woman, I'm a voracious reader. I've never read, oh, she was in a dog-like pose. But I've read he's maybe not even for men, he's in a dog, because they think cats are female, dogs are male, which makes no sense. But
totally. Yeah, I know what you mean. And cats
true,
are
right?
so elegant.
But yeah, they're like, she was in a feline pose. She stretched like a cat. You read that kind of stuff. You don't read she's stretched like a dog or yawned or whatever like a dog. So that's where I was going. But yeah, I know there's groups and it's all about giving back to the cats. Have you ever had live cats in your show?
Great question, because one time we actually did, back when we were at the comedy club in Queens, one of my stand-up or improv comedians, his cat is a special cat. It was harness trained and could walk on a leash and lived right nearby, like an apartment right next door. And so he got permission from the owner because he lived nearby to bring, oh my gosh, I can't remember the kitty's name. Was it Lionel, maybe? To bring this kitty on stage for a little improv scene with him. And of course, the cat didn't do anything, but it was still hilarious because he was like acting things out with suggestions from the audience. But he did ask everyone in the audience to please hold their applause and stay quiet so that we could be respectful of his kitty who performed in the show. So that was rather exciting.
That's so cute. I think it would be a challenge to have cats. I've seen cats on stage. I've seen cats that do, theatrics at shows. But I know for the most part, cats are independent, want to be by themselves, and they're not really performers.
Yes, I agree. My 2 cats, they're most comfortable when they're at home, around familiar surroundings. But I do want to mention, I do partner with a nonprofit local rescue group, Rescue NYC, and we showcase their adoptable cats in our pre-show and intermission slideshow. So every show we showcase cats in need of homes, and many of those cats are at Koneko Cat Cafe, which is right across the street here in New York City from Caveat, our venue. So it's really perfect, and Koneko donates a couple pairs of entries to their cattery for part of our raffle. So we try to collaborate with local cat businesses to just spread the word about adoptable cats.
I was going to get to that since you're such a cat lover. I was going to get to whether you have, anything about TNR, adoption, and so forth, because that's a big thing. And there's a lot of active rescues in New York City.
Absolutely. And when we were in Astoria, we also partnered with Astoria Cat Rescue because we can't have those live cats, but I knew I wanted to do something to connect people with opportunities and just raise awareness.
So you had mentioned, so you're in New York. Not all of us are. Some of us would like to be, but we're not. So it's my birth city. So I love New York. But you mentioned you also have virtual tickets. How does that work?
Yes. I would love to share this with all of your Cattitude listeners. So we have shows quarterly. And in addition to the in-person tickets, we have virtual live stream tickets for just $10 Folks can buy them through Caveat's website, and they're good for up to 7 days after the show. So you could be at home, wherever you are across the world, watch it live with your kitty cats by your side, and there is a little chat. I try to always call out the folks on the live stream to include them because it's important to me to foster the sense of like we're a community of cat lovers. But you don't have to watch it live wherever you are. If it's not your time zone, you could watch it the next day or a few days from then. And I love it if people, maybe take a selfie of them and their cat or a picture of their cat and tag us on Instagram at Catbaret Show to say that they're watching it so that I can, reshare it and include them and make them feel like they're really part of the fun. But they can watch the whole show from home.
Okay, and we're going to talk about a little bit a different topic in our second half. But before we go, with everything you've done in your show and living in the city you live in, which is kind of ahead of the game with a lot of things such as banning declawing, but what would you like to see happen with Catbaret? And question 2, what would you like to see in the cat community?
Great question. Well, with Catbaret, I'd like to continue growing our community of cat lovers. Perhaps this year I'm going to have 4 shows, packing the house, maybe even having some fun like meetup happy hour events, like in between shows, like a little meetup, because we can't really bring our cats to like the cat park like dog folks, they get to mingle and meet each other, but this is another way. And something I'm also really excited about, I'm friends with Jenny Pearson. She's the founder of the Cat Museum of New York City. It's a proposed cat museum. And it's a place not only to, I don't want to speak too much on it because it's her mission, but I'm seeing different events and things of this nature pop up where more cat lovers are coming together and also providing resources to the community for spay-neuter. There's a need for veterinary care in the city and all of the neighborhood cats, trap, neuter, release, as you mentioned before. So just continuing to see different organizations grow and flourish and connect people with resources and connecting with one another. That's what I'd really like to continue to see.
Absolutely agree. And I think there's also, with as much information that we have, with the internet and so forth, and podcasts and live streams and everything, I still think there is a lot of education to be had.
Yes.
So many misconceptions about things that, I don't know, I learn things all the time. But we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to Gemma Smith. She is the producer of Catbaret and the host of Tails and Tassels podcast. And she also has done some work and still does some work with kittens. Kitten season, we're a little ahead of the game. Kitten season is not yet in New York. I live in the South, the northern South, as I call it, South Florida. So we kind of have kitten season year round, but it does peak, it's April through October. What can you tell us about kittens?
Sure. Well, you're absolutely right. Kitten season is the time of year, feline breeding season, when shelters across the country are flooded with homeless and newborn cats. And kittens, I've adopted 2 myself, are very special. As we all know, they're a very vulnerable animal population as well. So in addition to being, extremely, extremely cute, when they're under 8 weeks of age, they can be very vulnerable. They need assistance keeping themselves warm. Neonatal kittens need assistance learning to eat on their own. And so the biggest way folks can help kittens is really by fostering them, maybe reaching out to a local organization.
I think people think kittens, they're so cute and everything, but you're right. There's an extreme amount of work involved. I'm sure you're probably familiar with Hannah Shaw, Kitten Lady.
Yes. You know what? I think I saw her in an event one time.
I've had her on the show and I've seen her. She has a lot on Instagram and she does so much for kittens, like newborn and kittens that are born with birth defects and all kinds of issues. And literally sometimes feedings every couple of hours. So depending on how young the kittens are and if they're abandoned by the mother, they're a lot of work. But you said you adopted 2. So in my very informal poll that I've had on Cattitude with guests, I have heard that it's better to have 2 than 1 because then they could play with each other. You're a kitten expert. What do you think?
You're absolutely right, but I didn't do it the correct way because guess what? This is when I was, about over a decade ago, I was working at that veterinary clinic and I just adopted 1 at a time. But I adopted that second one because my first cat, Lion-O, was what we like to call in the shelter world a singleton. He needed another cat to help teach him his boundaries and learn how to be a cat and play with each other, as you mentioned, get that energy out. So I adopted my other cat, Luna, as a kitten not too long after. But you're absolutely right. Kittens do really, really well in pairs because they learn how to cat with one another. But if someone has a resident cat at home, you could also adopt a kitten, and your resident cat that you already have can be a helper cat to that kitten and teach them how to cat.
Yeah, that could be a whole other show because sometimes introducing a kitten to the mix can be great or it depends on the cat. Like Charlotte was not nice to Molly, who is her sister from a different litter. This is from my crew. But Dennis, he's chill. He doesn't care. It was a little challenge. I've had shows on that in the past. But have you run into people asking that question?
Yes, people have asked that before. I honestly, even though I was working at a veterinary clinic, myself, someone told me, some of my coworkers were like, you really should adopt one of his litter mates. And I was just like, oh, this is my first kitten. 1 is enough. But I learned the hard way, even though he's wonderful, he's thriving as going into his senior kitty years now. I think it is really best. I should have listened.
One of our show hosts had said once, kittens are like potato chips. You can't have only one. So, you think of them in pairs. What should people be aware of when they're adopting a kitten?
Well, I think folks should look at their, lifestyle, their apartment. The good thing about kittens is they don't take up a lot of space, right? So even if you live in a big city or in a house in the suburbs, they don't take up a lot of space. At first, you could even get them used to your surroundings in a small room. Or even in New York City, we tell folks a bathroom at first because for them, they're learning a new environment and it's going to take them some time to, get used to the smells, sounds, and how it feels in their new home. So to go slow with them, let them settle in to this new environment. And, it's really great if you first bring them home to leave the carrier open with some bedding in it so they can go back in there as their safe space. And also, it's a great idea to think about kitten-proofing your home. So, getting down on their level and thinking, what wires, cords, things could be a potential hazard to a kitten? And also, lots of times, folks should think about plants, house plants, and are they toxic? Are they not toxic? That's a big one as well.
Those are great points. And I want people to also remember those little cute kittens become cats. And cats are still pretty small. Mine are a little on the bigger side. I had a show recently about putting them on a diet for New Year's. But even if they're small, 16 pounds or whatever, they do grow to be cats. So keep that in mind. What about the type of where they're adopting? Do you have any tips on where they should go? Or, I had kittens born on my front step and I adopted out too. But I was careful and I vetted them. But a lot of people will adopt from shelters. Should they be aware of some shelters, aware of some private individuals, or doesn't really matter? I mean, except for safety, of course.
Oh, yes, yes. I love that you adopted from your doorstep and adopted them out. And I completely agree with what you say about, hey, these cute kittens also turn into amazing cats. So keep that in mind. I think folks, I always would recommend adopting from a local shelter or rescue group. I think it's great to find out if they're a 501c3 nonprofit first, learn a little bit, go to the website, look at their Instagram, learn about their application process, or talk to your friends. There are shelters in every state across the country. So you can always ask a friend, where'd you get your cat from? That's my personal recommendation, is checking and just doing a little Google search for your local rescue group.
Okay, and to my listeners, I promise I'm not going to do this every show, but this does fit. Please be aware when you're adopting that cute kitten. Kittens have claws. They need their claws. I know declawing is banned in New York, which is wonderful. It's not banned everywhere, but it's not just cutting their nails. It's cutting their knuckle. So be aware that if you have a leather couch, and I know my Cattitude listeners, they're like, yeah, we get this cat scratch stuff, and make sure you have scratchers and what they need. But even if that happens, just like any pet that you have in your home, things can get ruined. So keep that in mind before you take that kitty home. The kitty's going to its forever home, and then it gets returned to the shelter.
I completely agree with you. Declawing, when I worked at a veterinary clinic, I didn't know a lot about it at the time. I had never been around a declawed cat or knew about it, and I had learned what it was just because we didn't do it there. And I was like, well, what is that? And so I learned more about it, and it's so horrible. It is like cutting off their finger to their knuckle. Right. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah, there was a great movie about it called, and I just mentioned this in a prior podcast, so it's in my mind, listeners, so I just want to make sure you get the message. It's called American Cat, the Good, the Bad, the Cuddly, and it's just amazing and so informative, and there's a lot people are not aware of. A lot of people think it's just trimming a nail.
That's a great misconception to clear up.
Yes, exactly. Keep in mind that, this didn't happen to me with my cats because they were all local, but one of my dogs who's now in doggy heaven, he was returned. So, to me, I think that's not the worst, of course, but it's up there with really crummy things to do to your little fur babe. Take it home and then decide, it chewed my shoe or scratched something, going back.
Agree with you. It's so funny. I would like my cats, one of our couch in the office. I'm like, yes, that little end is for you to scratch. I love them so much. I get the scratchers. I do all the things. But if they want to scratch that one part of the couch, you know what? I love them. Let them live.
You know what? When I shopped for my couch, I made sure it was as pet proof as I could make it.
Yes.
Certain material, machine washable covers. Didn't spend a lot of money because I knew it was probably going to get ruined. You have older, fur babes, they have accidents or one end or the other, things happen. So I think most of us as pet parents, we, especially with cat pet parents and their lovely claws, we just have it in mind that, it's not the end of the world, right?
Yes, exactly. That's how I feel. And it's so good though for new cat parents to hear like things to think about, because you really can prep for becoming a cat parent and do some things in advance to make it easy on you and easier for your cat and set them up for success.
Right, exactly. So right before we go, can you share again where people can find your Catbaret?
Absolutely. If people are on Instagram, I would love for you to follow us at Catbaret Show. So like cabaret, but Catbaret on Instagram, Catbaret Show. And if you want to check out tickets, the link is in the bio there, or you could go to caveat.nyc.
People can find out more about you on your website as well?
Yes, gemmasmith.net. Everything about me is there as well. And I look forward to connecting with more cat lovers.
Well, Gemma, thank you so much for coming on Cattitude.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
I hope you all enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out Catbaret. You can find out more on Gemma's website, gemmasmith.net. I'd like to thank my cat listeners. Thank you so much for listening to Cattitude. I appreciate your listenership and your loyalty. Thank you so much. Anyone with interesting topics, want to hear about certain things on Cattitude, shoot me an email, Michelle@PetLifeRadio.com. I answer all emails. I'd like to thank my cat crew, Molly, Charlotte, and Dennis, and thank my guest again. Thank you, Gemma, for coming on Cattitude. And, of course, thank my producer, the amazing Mark Winter, for working his magic and making my podcast making my podcast sound amazing. Now, remember, lose the attitude, have Cattitude.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.